We've been reading chapter 25 of A Course in Miracles, which is called The Justice of God. So I thought we could read from the Manual for Teachers, question 19 or section 19, which is called What is Justice? That is the question, what is justice? This is a very short little section. Justice is the divine correction for injustice. Injustice is the basis for all the judgments of the world. Justice corrects the interpretations to which injustice gives rise and cancels them out. Neither justice nor injustice exists in heaven, for error is impossible and correction meaningless. In this world, however, forgiveness depends on justice, since all attack can only be unjust. Justice is the Holy Spirit's verdict upon the world. Except in his judgment, justice is impossible. For no one in the world is capable of making only just interpretations and laying all injustices aside. If God's Son were fairly judged, there would be no need for salvation. The thought of separation would have been forever inconceivable. Justice, like its opposite, is an interpretation. It is, however, the one interpretation that leads to truth. This becomes possible because, while it is not true in itself, justice includes nothing that opposes truth. There is no inherent conflict between justice and truth. One is but the first small step in the direction of the other. The path becomes quite different as one goes along, nor could all the magnificence, the grandeur of the scene, and the enormous opening vistas that rise to meet one as the journey continues be foretold from the outset. Yet even these, whose splendor reaches indescribable heights as one proceeds, fall short indeed of all that weight when the pathway ceases and time ends with it. But somewhere one must start. Justice is the beginning. All concepts of your brothers and yourself, all fears of future states, and all concerns about the past stem from injustice. Here is the lens which, held before the body's eyes, distorts perception and brings witness of the distorted world back to the mind that made the lens and holds it very dear. Selectively and arbitrarily is every concept of the world built up in just this way. Quote, sins, unquote, are perceived and justified by careful selectivity in which all thought of wholeness must be lost. Forgiveness has no place in such a scheme, for not one, quote, sin, unquote, but seems forever true. Salvation is God's justice. It restores to your awareness the wholeness of the fragments you perceive as broken off and separate, and it is this that overcomes the fear of death. For separate fragments must decay and die, but wholeness is immortal. It remains forever and forever like its creator, being one with him. God's judgment is his justice. Onto this, a judgment wholly lacking in condemnation, an evaluation based entirely on love, you have projected your injustice, giving God the lens of warped perception through which you look. Now it belongs to him and not to you. You are afraid of him and do not see you hate and fear yourself as enemy. Pray for God's justice and do not confuse his mercy with your own insanity. Perception can make whatever picture the mind desires to see. Remember this. In this lies either heaven or hell, as you elect. God's justice points to heaven just because it is entirely impartial. It accepts all evidence that is brought before it, admitting nothing and assessing nothing as separate and apart from all the rest. From this one standpoint does it judge, and this alone. Here all attack and condemnation becomes meaningless and indefensible. Perception rests, the mind is still, and light returns again. Vision is now restored. What had been lost has now been found. The peace of God descends on all the world, and we can see. And we can see. Exclamation point at the end. It's a little emphasis there, repetition. And we can see. So what is justice? I think it's important to bring up again and again, which Jesus does again and again, that God does not judge, and there's no forgiveness in heaven. There's no forgiveness or correction needed in heaven, in God's realm, which the Course says is the only true reality. Everything else is our illusion that we have created. And Jesus is very clear here that our warped perception is wholly in our hands. You know, when we look outside of ourselves and we see a problem, or we see anything except the perfect love that is all there really is, then we have chosen to see it that way. Pure and clear and simple. It's as simple as that. It's not at all simple for us, but that's what it is. So the Holy Spirit's justice, which is God's justice, the Holy Spirit is the voice for God, and the Holy Spirit is that part of our mind that still remembers the truth, and is constantly there. It's been called the lighthouse, right? Ken Wapnick called it that. It's the lighthouse that is constantly reminding us that, dude, it's not like that. You know, you're whatever you're attacking, whatever you're getting upset about, whatever you're grieving about, whatever you're having some issue with, is not real. That is your creation. That is your decision to see it that way. That is your interpretation, and you're interpreting it through the lens of the ego, not through the lens of the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit is that voice of complete non-judgment, absolute non-judgment, because it's the voice for God, and God is judgment is not even a part of God's, of what God is, the love of God, let's say. Judgment cannot be part of love, because love does not contain any opposite. Fear is not any part of that. Fear is nothing. It's only something for us, right? Because we have made that. We have created, not created, but we have made that. We have made that, and so we have made an enemy of God. You know, Jesus is saying this. We have basically shoved God out of the picture, and we're afraid of God. And if we look deeply enough, we will see that that's true. You know, if somehow we can see that. Now, the one paragraph in here that I really want to talk about is the second one. Let's just read that real quick. Justice, like its opposite, is an interpretation. It is, however, the one interpretation that leads to truth. So this is the same thing that Jesus said with forgiveness. You know, justice and forgiveness are synonyms. Forgiveness is also an illusion, right? It's an interpretation, it's an illusion, but it's the one illusion or interpretation that leads to the truth. So in that way, yes, it is an illusion, but it's the one illusion that can actually be helpful. This becomes possible because while it is not true in itself, justice includes nothing that opposes truth. There is no inherent conflict between justice and truth. One is but the first small step in the direction of the other. So justice is the first small step toward the truth. In other words, forgiveness or correcting your vision is the first small step. The path becomes quite different as one goes along. This is where it gets interesting. Nor could all the magnificence, the grandeur of the scene, and the enormous opening vistas that rise to meet one as the journey continues be foretold from the outset. That's a very interesting line. What does Jesus mean by that? Yet even these, whose splendor reaches indescribable heights as one proceeds, fall short indeed of all that wait when the pathway ceases and time ends with it. But somewhere one must start. Justice is the beginning. Jesus seems to be saying here that as you go on this path, you can experience some really incredible things. You can really tap into to great beauty, to indescribable vistas and beauty, and it can be breathtaking, and but that's not the end either. don't get too attached to all that, because that is not the goal. Those are good signs that something is happening, and that you're getting closer, but that is not the final. You're still in the path. And justice and correcting your vision, justice or correcting your vision is the start. When you understand what the goal is, when you understand that you made fear, and it's up to you to correct your own vision. No one can do that for you. That's your responsibility. When you realize that, then you have started the journey and you are on the path. Until that point, you are still asleep, and you are basically at the whim of forces that seem to be beyond your control. But they're really not. But they seem to be, but they're not. Anyway, I think that's all for right now. I think that's good for this section. Thank you so much for listening. Comments are always welcome. Feedback, anything else. Thank you.